Greetings everybody, this is Emily from A Pages in Ink, and today I will be doing my urban/paranormal fantasy book or year in books review video. If you haven't seen my past videos yet, feel free to check them out. But what I'm doing is I'm breaking down the last week in 2015 into different genres, and each day I'm going to be talking about a genre of book type and the books in that genre that I have read this past year. I have currently read, I think 88 books out of 100. I'm probably going to be wrapping up the year in manga just because I can read a manga volume in an hour, and I can make it to 100 without killing myself. But anyway, so in the past I have done dystopian, science fiction, graphic novels, and thriller/horror, not in that order. I think one of those is actually flipped, but you get the point. And as I said, today is my urban/paranormal fantasy reads that I have read this past year. So the first series, and I say series because a lot of these are actually series, not just like single books, standalones, but it is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. I will pick it up and show you. I have the older covers, I want the new ones, but I'm not the kind of person that'll have multiple copies just because I like the cover, because I'm only going to read one, first of all. And second of all, I feel like it's a waste of money to buy a series that you're probably not even going to read because of the covers. That's my own opinion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't if you want to. If you feel it's a good use of your money, go right ahead. I feel like it's a waste even if I like the covers. But anyway, on to this book series stuff. So, this series is not really at all well, it's not at all, but it's in the same universe as the Mortal Instruments series by the same author, Cassandra Clare, but they take place in different time periods. The Mortal Instruments takes place, I want to say, in like 2007, whereas the Infernal Devices takes place, and that takes place in New York, takes place in England in the 1870s. So, I know this is more of like a historical fiction than a urban fantasy, but the only two books, series kind of things that I have read this year that were historical fiction were this and A Madness So Discreet. And I put A Madness So Discreet in horror/thriller because that's pretty much what it was. So I decided to put this one here because I really like the series. I did want to talk about it a little bit, and if it was the 1870s, it would be an urban fantasy kind of thing. Yeah. In my own personal opinion, this series is better than Mortal Instruments. It's not as long, which can be kind of sad, but I feel the story's wrapped up really well. The writing is much more sophisticated, and the plot twists aren't as, I almost want to say, silly as the plot twist at the end of City of Bones, for example. If you haven't read this, you probably already know this based on what the fans talk about, and that's that Clary and Jace are siblings. You learn that plot twist at the end of City of Bones, and I was just like, this is kind of the dumbest thing ever. I feel like this series is a little more sophisticated. It follows a girl named Tessa Gray who travels from New York to London to find her brother Nathaniel, and is picked up instead by two witches, or warlocks technically, and she's pulled into the world of the Downworlders, and also because she's pulled into the world of Downworlders, she's also pulled into the world of the Shadowhunters, and the Shadowhunters rescue her from the warlocks that have imprisoned her, and she not recruits them, but she asks their help to find her brother. And basically the series follows Tessa on her journey to not only figure out what she is, because it turns out that she has weird shape-shifting abilities that nobody has ever heard of before. She can change herself into other people by holding on to things that they have owned, and at one point she can even do it without touching their things, I believe. So they kind of are trying to find her brother, discover what she is and where she came from, and who took her brother and who is tormenting the shadow hunters so bad. And it's a really good story. It's really interesting. You really learn to love every character. There's not a character that I hate that is not an antagonist, because I have problems with certain antagonists. Like, I will strongly dislike them. And then there are antagonists that I love to hate. And this is one of the ones that he makes me mad. But that's not the point. The point is, it has great characters. The writing is very sophisticated, in my opinion. I read it as a read-along early in March. And on that kind of, I'm going to segue a little bit just for a second. In 2016, I plan on doing a The Darkest Minds read-along. So if you're interested, let me know down below, and maybe I can get some partners and we can work on it together. Anyway, so that's all I have to say about the Infernal Devices series. The next one on my list I do not have with me, and that is Seeker. I gave this book, I believe, a 3 out of 5 stars, or maybe a 2, I don't remember, but I do remember not liking it. In the beginning, it had more of a high fantasy feel, it seemed, because they were out in the forest, they were practicing with weapons that I didn't think of were very advanced until I realized that they were. And then it kind of segues into this more futuristic kind of thing. And I was just super confused. I was like, I thought this was high fantasy, and now you're telling me it's urban fantasy, and it could be happening now, and I'm like, so it really threw me off. The characters were okay. There was kind of a bit of an obvious kind of romance, and at one point the character completely shuts herself down, or not shuts herself down. Somebody blocks her memories, so she doesn't really remember where she came from. So there's this whole period where she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't remember anything about her past, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, why? I mean, if that had happened, I think it would be more interesting to break it into different books instead of one book, which didn't end up happening. But I didn't like it very much. So, yeah. The next book I have on my list is, as I was talking about before, and I probably should have done them one after the other, but I didn't, the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. Yeah. I do really enjoy this series, but I really honestly like this half of it, because things are just so much more interesting, and I don't know, I like the last half of the series much better. And I will say that the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments have a bit of an overlap. Even though they're in different time periods, and if you read the series, you'll kind of understand how. But you don't need to read one before you read the other. Lady Bookman, and at the time, it's Six of Murkrows, but at the time he was C. Parks, and they had done a read-along of the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments together. And what they had done was they had done the first 3 books, Infernal Devices, last 3 books. And if you are interested in reading the series, I would definitely read it that way, because things that happen in the Infernal Devices kind of tie into the last half of the Mortal Instruments series. So if you're confused about, or you're not sure about how to read the series, if you want to, you can do it that way. I didn't participate because I had already read the Infernal Devices, but I did kind of participate at the same time because I did read the Mortal Instruments at the same time. But anyway, if you don't know anything at all about the Mortal Instruments, you kind of already know stuff already, because the fandom is huge, and Shadowhunters TV series is coming out next month, and I just realized it's going to be next month, and I am so excited. Because even though this series can be kind of a mess, I've seen that they're doing really good things with it, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out, and to finally have a good representation for the story that so many fans love. Because the movie was okay. It wasn't great. But I'm seeing a lot of really good stuff for the TV series, so I'm excited. But anyway, if you don't know anything at all about this series, the Mortal Instruments series follows a girl named Clary Frey, whose mother gets attacked by a demon and goes missing. And she gets pulled into the world of the Shadow Hunters, which are like demon hunters in a way. And they have these magic runes that do different things to help them in their battle against demons. And they kind of coincide with a group called Downworlders, which are warlocks, fairies, werewolves, and vampires. And they kind of try to keep the peace as well as they can, even though at one point they were actually considered enemies because they aren't human. And a lot of them are actually mixtures between, well, 2 of them are considered demonic diseases, and the other 2 are descendants of demons, if that makes any sense. So, in the book, Clary is basically trying to find her mother and rescue her mother from what turns out to be her father. And it kind of changes halfway through, because then instead she's hunting somebody else, which I won't say. But the series gets better with time. And I can understand how it can be hard for people to get into, because my brother tried to read it, didn't really get into it. I think my cousin tried to read it and didn't really get into it. I'm the only one that has been able to read the whole series. But I'm more likely to stick with something. So I do recommend it, but be very cautious, because I don't want you to try to push yourself through it and then you end up in a reading slump because of it, because it can be kind of difficult to really get into. But they are good books. Cassandra Clare is a great writer, in my opinion. I prefer the Infernal Devices to the 2 series, and I'm really, really excited, as I said, for the TV series, but also for Lady Midnight, the part of the Dark Artifices series. I don't know specifically when that's coming out, but I know it's next year, and it follows Emma Carstairs, who is one of my favorite characters, even though you see like this much of her when she was younger in Air of Fire, the last book of the Mortal Instruments series. But I'm so excited to see her because she's awesome, and she has a variant of my name, Emma, Emily. Yeah. So I'm gonna move on. The next series I have, I'm sure a lot of you have probably read or heard about, and that is the Raven series by Maggie Stiefvater. This series is awesome. I didn't expect to like it really as much as I did. I don't know why, but I do. It's great. It follows a girl named Blue Sargent, who is the ungifted, and I say ungifted because she lives in a household full of psychics, and she has no psychic abilities, but she does act kind of like an amplifier. She kind of makes their psychic abilities stronger. While she's at this thing on a certain day that I can't think of the day, she's with her aunt, who she's probably only ever met once, maybe, unless this is the first time. I don't really remember. It's been a while. But anyway, it's with her and her aunt, and they're at this like ghost walk in a way, where the ghosts that will die in the next year walk through and talk to her aunt basically, and because she asks them, you know, how did you die, and so that way if there's any potential people that come into their house for readings, they can be like, oh, this is going to happen to a family member, and she comes across this ghost of a boy named Gainsey. And ends up meeting Gainsey while he's still alive, and their paths cross there and then combine, and like she becomes a part of their gang, and there's Gainsey, Adam, Ronan, and Noah. And I love the Raven Boys. I love the Raven did I say the Raven Boys series? It's the Raven Cycle series. But it's really great. This one deals with dreams, and this one, it all comes back to a place that people don't think actually exists, but actually does, and it's called Cape Swatter, which is like this magical forest in a way. And it's really Paranormal, and it's really interesting and really magical, and you should read it. I love it. Next, I have Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, which I did not like very much. I thought I would like it a lot more than I did. I feel like it was missing something. I did like Karu. Akiva's okay. I think maybe that was the problem, was because she's supposed to be like this demon character, and she was practically raised by demons, and this angel comes through and kills them all. And so she's basically without a family for a little bit, and you're just kind of sitting there like, what? And the person that does that is the friggin' love interest. So she falls in love with the guy that slaughters the people she could consider her family. And it turns out, spoiler alert right here, gonna give you a second to decide if you want to stay. Okay, turns out she is like a reincarnation kind of thing, in a way. And so she's already been in love with him before, and she's been like and I'm like, what? I just don't get it. I just didn't get it, I guess. The cover's really pretty. I have said that if somebody lets me borrow, or if I see it and I feel interested enough to read it, I will read Days of Blood and Starlight and Dreams of Gods and Monsters, because, you know, maybe this series gets better, maybe it starts to make more sense, but from what I read, I wasn't into it. And I thought I would be. The next book on my list I do not own, and that is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. And if you've seen my my thriller/horror video, you will know I really enjoy The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. I did not enjoy The Darkest Part of the Forest as much. It was really dark and really good, but it wasn't to where The Coldest Girl in Cold Town was, in my opinion. I did enjoy the fact that instead of being a damsel in distress kind of character, the main female character was actually more of a knight character. And I also like that her brother, who is one of the main male characters of the story, has a thing for the princely character of the story. So not only is there a gay main male character, but there is also a knight character. And I thought that was really interesting to do. It was a great story. The plot was good. I think the reason I didn't like it as much is I felt like there's something missing. I don't know what that is compared to how I kind of figured out what was wrong with Daughter of Smoke and Bone, in my opinion. But I guess it was just missing something. I don't know. It just wasn't as good as The Coldest Girl in Cold Town to me. The Darkest Part of the Forest, if you don't know what it's about, is about two siblings who live in a town where fairies live nearby. And the fairy prince has been asleep in this glass casket pretty much almost as long as the town has been there, probably. And I'm going to move these so I can move my leg. And they kind of both dream about saving him, but in different kinds of ways. And at one point, he's actually broken free of the glass casket, and they're trying to figure out what exactly happened and what it means for the town. Because there's been kind of like a mutual understanding that you don't wake the prince. For a little bit, there's more of a the prince is evil kind of feel. And you kind of slowly learn that the prince is not evil. So, I don't know, maybe that's it. I don't know what it was, but it just wasn't as good. The last book I have to talk about is Miss Peregrine's School for the... What is it now? I just wrote Miss Peregrine's. I thought I would be able to say it all off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure it's like Mrs. Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children. And if you've seen my horror/thriller thing, you will say that here that I have said that Mrs. Peregrine's and Asylum are similar in the ways that they both have like old creepy photos as a part of telling the story. And And I guess I misunderstood what Miss Peregrine's would be about because I thought it would be more creepy, but it's more paranormal, it's more magical than that. And it was really good. It wasn't what I was expecting, though, which kind of, I think, maybe brought it down a little bit, because I thought it would be like Asylum. It would be like a horror story, but it's more of a paranormal fantasy kind of story. It was still really good. I do recommend it if you're into this kind of stuff. It follows a boy and his father on a trip to this island, I believe in Wales, somewhere around there. And there is talk of his grandfather had been killed earlier in that year, and he had once been a part of the school for peculiar children. And because, or not because of it, but he goes in search of this place to find out what, because he knows that the thing that killed his grandfather wasn't exactly normal. Like, it wasn't a normal thing. So he's trying to figure out what killed his grandfather and who these people were that meant so much to his father at one point in time, but then just kind of disappeared from his life. And it was really interesting and really good. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because it wasn't my favorite. But it's still really good. I do recommend it. And that's all I have for you today. Tomorrow I will talk about the high fantasy stories that I have read in the past year. Excuse me. Then I will tell you the day after top 10 books I've read this year. And then the last day, which is coming up sooner than I thought it was, the last day I will talk about the top books that I am excited for that come out next year. And I will tell you right now, one of those books is going to be Passenger. I am excited for Passenger. I have pre-ordered my book. I am excited. But yeah, so that is all I have for you guys today, and I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you had a wonderful day, or will have a great day, depending on what time you're watching this, and I will see you next time. Bye!